Hey everyone. So it's time for another one of these videos. These videos always generate a bunch of comments as they should, because the Eurocentric brainwashing that we've all been subjected to is being shattered, right? So I'm going to be sharing with you several articles and things that I've come across. There's a comment. There is this article from what is this publication called? This is called the Egypt Independent, and several other articles about ancient Egyptians. Okay. All right. So I want to share with you this article first, and this is from Egypt Independent. Okay. So it says Dutch photographer reveals modern image of Egyptian king Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti. Okay. Now, you can just look at these images and we can all just use common sense. Okay. Anyway, I think we should take a look at these images and really think critically about what we've been told about Egypt. All right. All right. So, hey, Alma. Okay. Ladies, hey, so there are people in here already. Hey, Uppity Unicorn. Hey, Alma. Okay, if you guys want to come on, because I did promise. Hey, KK. Hey, guys. Okay, so I did promise I would make another video about race in ancient Egypt. So if you guys want to come on the panel and talk about these articles that I've come across, you can come up. I'm going to leave the panel link in the chat. So I just put it in the chat. It's right here. If you click on this link right here, it will take you up to the panel so we can have a conversation. All right. So we're going to have, hopefully, we're going to have a productive and non-combative toxic conversation, like an honest one. Okay. Now, going back to this article. Hey, so Ira Dukunda says, yes, they were Black. Okay. If anyone wants to come up and join the panel, you can. I put the link in the chat. Okay. Here it is right here. So you can click on that link and it will take you up into the panel. Okay. All right. Now, let's go back to these images. And I will be reading this article for you guys. So it says here, using artificial intelligence, Dutch photographer Bas Uterwijck, I guess that's how you pronounce his last name, released on Friday modern images of the Egyptian king Amenhotep and Queen Nefertiti. Okay, the pictures which Uterwijck posted on his Twitter page are based on old carvings and engravings that portrayed the two. So he simply took from the ruins carvings of these two figures of Egyptian royalty, and he recreated them using artificial intelligence. Okay, so let me see. I think someone. Oh, Amma. Okay. Hey, Amma.
Hi.
Hey. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming up.
No problem.
Yeah. So did you come across this article? I saw it today.
Yes, I did see that on Twitter, and honestly, the comments under that Twitter post from the Dutch photographer was disgusting. Some of the comments.
I did not see this on Twitter. I saw this on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to talk about this today. Have to." So what do you think? So what were some of the comments like?
It sounded like people, like these Egyptians of Arabic descent were. Some of them were saying, you know, the same old thing that I've mentioned to you before about how they accuse Black Americans specifically of trying to steal their culture and identity and all that nonsense. So there was that, and it was disgusting. Some of the comments under there were disgusting.
Right. I can only imagine.
You know how it is, you know.
I do. I absolutely do know how it is. But okay, so this is just one article. I have another article I'd like to share with you guys, and I want you to stick around, Alma, so we can talk about it, right?
Okay.
But okay, so I'm gonna finish reading this. Let's see, where did I leave off? So the artist said in his post, I don't claim to be a scientist. The historian portraits I make are based on artworks mostly made during the period of their subjects. With AI, I filter out the sculpting styles of the ancient the portraiture, and guide it to an incredible income. Uteric is famous for using a GAN generative adversarial network to convert old paintings of public figures and famous people into photographs. He had previously converted one of Fayum's historic painting into a modern photograph. GANs are a class of machine learning frameworks that are compatible of generating realistic looking photographs of humans, constructing 3D models and objects from images, and much more. All right, so I think that's very interesting. I think these images look very similar to the ancient carvings. I mean, I can pull some up, but it's just amazing the lengths a lot of people will go through, like how much time, energy, resources they will invest in disassociating Egypt with the rest of Africa. I just think it's very it's very telling, right? Like if you have to go through these lengths to disassociate Egypt from the rest of Africa, what are you telling us? You're telling us that you're trying to get us to reject common sense and logic in our
It's the
thinking.
only country in the world where is the race conversation, it's up for debate, basically, essentially.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, it really is. Another thing I speak often is on my videos, because I've made a bunch of videos about ancient Egypt, ancient Egyptians, like the native indigenous, original ancient Egyptians being Black. One of the things that I like to focus on is the Nile River and where it starts and where it empties out. People, people talk about the Nile and they're like, the Nile, the Nile, the Nile. Everything comes from the Nile. Egypt would be nothing without the Nile, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the Nile made the fertile land. The Nile birthed the Egyptian civilization. But it's like, do you realize the people of the first Egyptians also came from the Nile? And do you know where the Nile starts? The Nile starts in Lake Victoria in Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
I suggest everyone go look at a map. I'm so serious. I suggest everyone go look at a map of Egypt, of Africa. Just look at a map of Africa. Look at where the Nile starts. The Nile starts in Uganda, deep within quote unquote Black Africa, right?
Yeah.
And so you're telling me before a group of humans who, first of all, originate in East Africa, which Uganda is in East Africa, before a group of humans simply hopped on a canoe or a small boat and took the up current from Lake Victoria up into the Mediterranean. So you're telling me before humans simply did that, you had a group of humans who had to come out of Africa, become Asian first, and then come back into Africa, and traverse the desert.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense.
It's crazy. And it's like, I saw a video recently. There's a really large YouTube channel. And I think the title of the video is "Were the Ancient Egyptians Black?" And the guy actually sits there and he lies to everyone and says, well, the very first people of Egypt came from the Near East, Western Asia. I'm like, how could the very first people of Egypt come from the Near East and Western Asia when the very first people to exist came from Africa, period?
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me a group of people left Africa and then change into another Africa. I mean, it's absurd. I don't know.
It is absurd. It's racist. It's essentially racist. Can you hear me okay? The sound has gone funny.
I can hear you, but I think my computer froze a little bit. I'm going to look at some of these comments. KK says, I want to know who is saying that Egyptians aren't Black. That's ridiculous. Well, a lot of the modern Egyptians are not Black. A lot of them are descendants of Arabs, Turks, Europeans. A lot of them currently are not Black. But that doesn't make them indigenous, and it doesn't make them descendants of the ancient Egyptians or the native Egyptians or the original Egyptians.
You know, I've said this to you before. The Herodotus, the Greek historian, described the ancient Egyptians as having black skin with tight, curly, woolly hair. And how can that be up for... why is that dissected and still up for debate as if it's not genuine?
I mean, a lot of...
Said it in the 5th century BC. Recorded.
Right. A lot of historical accounts of North Africa are very similar to that one. Like, but anyway.
Yeah, but let's just all dismiss that because we're racist.
Of course. So I want to share with you also this right here. Actually, let me say hello to the people. Cecil Collins. Hey, Cecil Collins. She said, PS 105 said Egypt is the land of ham. And then this is JoJo say, hey, long time no see. Hey, JoJo. And then Queen of the South says, UniverseTrip in chat. Hey, y'all. Okay, so
Hi,
I want
to...
Hey, this is Amma.
Hi. I'm some random person.
You are a part of the family now.
I'm part of the family now.
So I want to show you guys this comment that I got recently on one of my videos. He says, most Egyptians I met here in America and actually in Egypt don't deny the ancient Egyptians were Black. They told me themselves and I didn't even ask. I mean, I said the same thing happened to me, but people discredit my stories and my accounts.
Mm-hmm.
They act as if I don't speak Arabic. أنا بكلم عربي, okay? Like أنا كنت ساكن في مصر. I speak Arabic. I'm fluent. I taught Arabic at Ivy League schools, okay? So it's just, I know the word original in Arabic. Like I had an Egyptian woman who was Turkish. She was Turkish Egyptian. Tell me, you look like, she said to me, Shaklik Asliya. And then people were like, no, you're thinking it's Asliya, it's Asaliya. It means you're sweet and cute. And I'm like, no. There's no ayn. I know what I'm talking about. I speak Arabic. I asked this woman, I had close contact with this woman. We had a conversation. She said, I look Asliya, meaning I look like the original people because I'm Black, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, this was a Turkish Egyptian woman. I said this in one of my videos and people telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. And it's like, did y'all live in Egypt for 2.5 years? No, you didn't. Anyway.
I love that story. I referred to that video and I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago, didn't I? I like that video.
You did.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like similar to him where he says, it says Egyptians, it says most Egyptians I met in America and actually in Egypt don't deny that ancient Egyptians were Black. They told me themselves and I didn't even ask. I was minding my own business. Mm-hmm. And this lady came up to me and was like, you look like the original Egyptians. I mean, because I'm African, right? Like I'm a part of the African diaspora.
Exactly.
And it's just, I didn't talk to this lady about the topic. I mean, I stayed far away from these conversations while living in Egypt. And it was just interesting that she wasn't the only one. I had 2 other people tell me the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And some people will sit there and be like, oh, well, these people say this to you because they were flirting with you. This old lady was not flirting with me. This old married woman. Okay, fine. Listen, if you want to discount the other men that have told me that, fine. You can tell me that they were flirting with me. But when it comes to the most involved conversation I've had about what the original Egyptians look like, this lady was not flirting with me.
Yeah, come on. Let's be honest.
But anyway, so let me see. He says, but with them being modern Egyptians, they did mention that compared to other Arabic cultures, North African Arabs, Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Morocco, have Black in them some are able to grow afros and have the same hair textures. First of all, let me tell you something. I have never in my life, I have never seen so many afros or dreadlocks in my life before I moved to Egypt.
Interesting.
Even in, like, I used to work when I was a teenager, I worked in DC for 3 summers in a row as an intern, right? Washington, DC was known as Chocolate City, majority black city, okay? Known for natural hair. There are dreadheads everywhere, people with locks, people with dreads everywhere. But still, when I went to Cairo, I saw more people with afros, more people with locks. Okay, were they light? Did they look like light-skinned black people? Yes. But they looked African and black nonetheless. Right. Even the ones that looked racially ambiguous, a lot of them had afros and dreadlocks.
Yeah.
So it's just like
they do the damnedest to prove that Africans haven't contributed anything to society or civilization. It's like it's this idea, this concept that they're incapable of doing so.
Exactly. And this is why they try so hard to disassociate Egypt,
yes,
or just North Africa in general with the rest of Africa.
Like we said this, you mentioned it before to me about Hollywood, like spending millions and millions of dollars with this whitewashed presentation of Egypt, ancient Egypt.
Right.
All these white actors playing Imhotep and all that. I do like the mummy films, but let's be honest, it's not really entirely accurate.
Right. I just want to share with you guys one more thing. I got an email from a subscriber, and we're gonna get into this, but I think this is really, really interesting here, where he says, don't forget, first of all, he says my YouTube comments were deleted, or YouTube deleted my comments, and a lot of them will, and like a lot of people on my Black ancient Egyptian videos, people will comment, they're like, why are you deleting my comments? I'm not deleting them. If you say anything racist, or if you put links in the comments, YouTube will get rid of them. I will never see them. No one will ever see them. Okay. But anyway, he says, don't forget how most of the pharaohs died of sickle cell anemia.
Wow.
We're gonna get into several pieces of content that's going to explore this. But he said, Egyptians were Negroes. Why I say so? Because blood relatives pass on their traits onto offspring. Sickle cell is an African Negro disease. Watch and listen. Okay, this is what the subscriber said. Okay, but I'm going to he sent an article from Independent. This is a UK publication.
Yes, that's right.
So this is an article from Independent. It says King Tut died from sickle cell disease, not malaria.
Well, there you go.
Y'all, who gets sickle cell? Who gets sickle cell?
It's in the receipts.
Who gets sickle cell? Okay, I mean,
Anglo-Saxons.
Okay, not to say that non-Black people can't get sickle cell. They can, but it is extremely rare.
Well, I'm biracial, so I'm also Anglo-Saxon, so I could still get it.
Right. Okay. But you are also Black.
Exactly.
Right. I don't know. The evidence is overwhelming.
And I actually really like those pictures. That art that he did they're beautiful. Absolutely stunning.
They were. They really were. I don't know, I don't know.
We do know. We know what's up. We know exactly what's up.
I mean, racism is such a powerful force that it could just make people reject logic altogether.
Yeah, it is. It's like a disease, a mental disease.
Okay, so let's get into. I wanted to read some of this about how King Tut died of sickle cell. It says King Tut died from sickle cell disease, not malaria, say experts. A team from Hamburg's Bernard Nocht Institute for Tropical Medicine claimed the disease is a far likelier cause of death than the combination of bone disorders and malaria put forward by Egyptian experts earlier this year. What else do we have here? Okay, I'm gonna read this part. It says instead the BNI team feels sickle cell disease, a genetic blood disorder, is a more likely reason for the pharaoh's death, aged just 19. The disease occurs in 9 to 22% of living people in the Egyptian oasis, and gives a better chance of surviving malaria, the infestation halted by sickle cells. And it says they say the disease occurs frequently in malarial regions like the River Nile, and that it would account for the bone defects found on his body.
That makes sense.
Anyway, so we're gonna get in. So he's, along with this article, he sent an academic article. Oh man, here we go. It says, I guess this BS symbol is sickle cell. It says BS globin gene haplotype and the stroke risk among Egyptian children with sickle cell disease. Actually, I'm going to put this in the chat, the link to this article. This is really dense. They do talk about these different African ethnicities and the likelihood of these different ethnicities or haplotypes having sickle cell. So I think it's very interesting that, you know, as much as people argue that, oh, you're African American, so that means you have absolutely no genetic or ancestral connections to ancient Egypt. First of all, I'm not claiming that I do. I'm just claiming that they're black.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's not the point. I just don't understand why people love to say that. Oh, you're Black American. You have no. It doesn't matter if I don't have direct connections. Like, I'm still a part of the African diaspora. The native Egyptians definitely identify as Black Africans. If you go to Aswan, if you go to South Egypt, I mean. But hold on, let me put this in the chat. So you can take a look at this academic article right here. Hey, Star Goddess. Thank you. But I'm going to also look at, there was a part of this video about sickle cells that I wanted you guys to see. Okay. Okay, we're gonna, okay. It's here. Okay, here we go. Is it true that sickle cell disease only affects African Americans? Okay. So we're gonna listen to this doctor from Kaiser Permanente. That's not a reputable enough source for you guys.
That's a good question. Well, the majority of the people with sickle cell disease in the United States are of African American descent, so 90%. That's 1 in 500 births in the African American population will have sickle cell disease.
Okay, she goes on to explain that anyone can get sickle cell, but 90% of the people in America who have sickle cell are Black. They're African American. If you look up sickle cell is a disease that mostly only impacts Black people of Black African descent. She said 90%. Okay. I think it's very interesting that an article has come out about how King Tut had died of sickle cell. I mean, you can just look at his portrait here as well.
I mean, even the name Tutankhamun does not sound West Asian. It sounds like an African name.
You know what? I don't know what else to say. Okay, hey, Moshe newsletter. Okay, this is the person that sent me the article about sickle cell. Thank you, Moshe. Thank you very much. If you'd like to come up and say something, Moshe, I would greatly appreciate that. I'm sure Alma would appreciate it too.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Moshe, if you'd like to click on this link right here, I put it in the chat. That will take you up to the panel so you can speak. I think it would be great if you spoke because you were the one that sent me this article. Okay. So anyway, let me read your comment. So Moshe says there was an article that was released in 2014 that archaeologists found over hundreds of mummies that died of sickle cell anemia. It's somehow removed from online. It's somehow removed from online. Yikes. You know, it's crazy, man. This is just crazy how much they work, how much they strive to hide this information.
I mean, it's not really hidden. They're just ignoring it. As in that same article with the Dutch artist was shared in several groups I'm on Facebook, and the white people were commenting as well. And I just really got pissed off then.
Just like, this doesn't have anything to do with you. Like,
yeah, I was like, shut the fuck up. Excuse my language. Sorry.
I mean, it's like, are you a part of the African diaspora? No.
No, they're not. They can fuck off.
Okay, so actually, Queen of the South is making a point, and I wanted to address this. So Queen of the South says, oh gosh, Queen of the South, sickle, you don't know how to spell sickle, girl. So I'm just joking. So sickle cell is genetically linked to specific melanated and ethnic bloodlines. Some Greeks and Italians get sickle cell as well. Yep, anybody can get it. It's just more prevalent among Black Africans or people of immediate Black African descent. So I wanted to actually read a part of this academic article that I thought was, and trust me, I'm not a geneticist. I am not, let's see, what is this? This is the Department of Medicine? Where did they get this from?
But 90% of African Americans is a huge number statistic.
Well, in America, yeah. So in America, 90% of the people who get sickle cell are Black. Mm-hmm. She literally said, a doctor from Kaiser Permanente said that 90% of the people in America who get sickle cell are Black. They're African American. So the fact that King Tut died of sickle cell is very telling.
Yes.
But there will still be people who will come on and say, no, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, tell them to get lost because their clan meeting is starting in 10 minutes and they're going to be late.
Queen of the South said, I'm multitasking. Oh, I get it, girl. It's okay. I was playing with you. She said the shade. Okay, but anyway, I wanted to read something to you, Queen of the South, because you brought up genetics linked to sickle cell, right? So I actually wanted to read the last paragraph. It's the conclusion. It says conclusion. It says this study provides a relevant oh wait, no, not that one. Sorry. Results. It's in the results section. So results says Benin was the most prevalent haplotype detected in 50%, followed by Benin Bantu in 30.8% of studied patients. TCD study showed that 14 out of 52, 26.9% patients have abnormally high TCD flow velocities, and thus considered high stroke risk group. Okay, or considered low stroke risk group. Stroke risk group was not found to be associated with sickle cell globin gene haplotype. I mean, even up here in the background and aim of work, it says sickle cell disease is an inherited disease of the beta globin gene. I guess the beta globin gene haplotype are Senegal, Benin, Bantu, Cameroon, Arab Indian, and atypical haplotypes. in sickle cell disease, stroke is a life. Oh crap! The dictionary. Okay, is a life-threatening event in both adults and children. I mean, I don't know. They have these haplotypes in Egypt, pretty much. They're saying like, because I mean, like people, I'm not big on genetics, but there are a lot of people in the comment section who are always bringing up like the word Bantu, the word like Negroid, the word Neolithic, and it's just like I understand what you're saying, but it's like we have to understand that Africa is the most genetically diverse like place in the world, and Black isn't just Bantu, right? Like Black, you can be Black and you can be, Neolithic. You can be Black and you can have any of these haplotypes. Like I just
because West African ethnicity is not the same as South African. It's not the same. It's so diverse.
It is. And even if you think about the mitochondrial Eve gene that originates in Black African women, it's the only gene that contains all of the possible variations of a human phenotype. Like any type of phenotype we can imagine first originated in the mitochondrial Eve gene that came from Black women. So it's like,
do you know there's also this kind of Eurocentric, whitewashed, kind of racist view, like lens, how they see Africa as very oversimplified. It's very, you know what I mean? It's like they oversimplify everything that's pertaining to Africa.
Truly. And then they only want to really complicate things when you start saying that the
Egypt. Yeah.
They want to complicate anything. Oh, wait. Yeah, Africa's Black. Oh, except Egypt.
There's one country.
And I keep saying this over and over again. People will glorify the Nile up and down, up and down, up and down. The Nile. Let's glorify the Nile. But no one wants to sit here and really talk about how the very first people of Egypt also came from the Nile. If you sit here and say Egyptian civilization would not exist without the Nile, you also have to say Egyptian people wouldn't exist without the Nile. They wouldn't have come to Egypt without the Nile. Hold on, let me show you a map of the Nile. Mm-hmm. It's insane. Let's see. I'll just use Google Maps. Somebody said, we know how people like to forget and deny Egypt is in Africa.
Yeah. It's the only African country that's not in the continent. Clearly.
Melissa Smith said those modern images looking good to be honest.
They do. They look hot.
I mean, they look beautiful. They're beautiful. But I mean, the carvings were very beautiful as well.
That artist got a lot of hatred because he kind of prefaced his post saying that he wasn't a scientist, and then he got all this abuse.
Right. So saying Black is a core descriptor, but here's the thing: they use Black. So here's the thing: a lot of people they go on my videos and they say, they're like, you're making everything about race. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. Hold up. Who created the concept of race? Who created the concept of race in order to justify the kidnapping, subjugation, and extended exploitation of a whole group of people? I mean,
Europeans.
we did not come up with this concept of race. Like, Europeans came up with the concept of race to exalt themselves over non-European people.
Yep.
To claim superiority and to justify subjugating and exploiting the labor of millions upon millions of Africans. We did not create this term. However, you can't flip-flop and say, oh, you're Black if you're a slave, but if you are the originators of an exalted, impressive, ancient civilization, you can't be Black. No. We're going to take that term and take pride in it. You forced it on us. It constructed, even though the term may not be real in and of itself, the construct isn't real, but it created very real consequences for those deemed Black. It created very real and material physical consequences and circumstances.
It's true. But we need to talk about race as and when it suits the white people. Come on.
Of course. So this is very interesting. Moshe newsletter says, Moshe, are you coming up? Yes or no? You should come up.
Yeah, come on up.
Don't be shy.
We do not bite.
We wouldn't be having this video right now if you hadn't sent me the article on sickle cell. Moshe newsletter says West African people share identical haplogroup E1B1A with Black natives in North, South America, including West Indies, Caribbean islands. These racial groups been migrating back and forth for 30,000 years. How to make it a regular thing. When you send me articles, I know you sent me that other one a while ago, but because I came across these new images, I decided to explore them and present them today. Okay. All right. So thank you. Queen of the South says Black. Okay, Terrell is here. Hi, Terrell.
Hello, how you doing? You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, UniverseTrip, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. This is an interesting topic.
Thank you. I think so too. Did you see the sickle cell article?
Have I seen what?
How King Tut died of sickle cell.
I ain't seen it.
You didn't see it? Okay.
I probably need to go look it up and watch it.
It's okay. I presented it here, so I'll show you again. This is from Independent, the publication source Independent. Oh, can you mute the YouTube channel, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Queen of the South says, y'all are fun. Thank you, Queen of the South. Melissa Smith says, yeah, ancient Egypt was hella fine. They got them spot on and not some whitewashing mess. Okay, so Terrell, here is the article. This is from Independent. And it says King Tut died from sickle cell disease, not malaria. And I showed another video of doctors from Kaiser Permanente explaining how the vast majority, I'm talking about vast majority of people who get sickle cell are Black and they are of Black African descent. They are either Black African and or of Black African descent. So I think it's very interesting that there was an article that leaked that information that King Tut died of sickle cell. Oh my gosh, the internet is killing me today. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you, Miss Troop.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Anyway, I was going to bring up a picture of the Nile so we can check this out. Mm. All right, this is what we got right here. All right. Why is this happening? Why isn't it allowing me to? This is so strange. Okay. Why is it doing this? It's not even allowing me to get the Google map. Okay, let's see. Um, so let's see. First of all, what the heck? Okay. Nile. Hmm. Okay, finally we were able to get it. All right. Now we're gonna zoom in. Terrell, did you want to say something?
Well, my opinion is based off that title, the ancient Egyptians was black. They were black just like me and you. I'm like, I kind of brown skin like a tan, but they were still my complexion, me and yours. Cause they don't look like the people they look like today, fair skins, some of them.
Well, I lived in Egypt for 2.5 years, and many of the Egyptians that live in the south are much darker than me. Much darker.
Yeah, you ain't that dark from what I'm seeing, but I know Egypt are mostly Muslims, but over the years and centuries, they had a lot of race mixing between the Europeans, the Italians, the Africans, and the Muslims from the Middle East. So that's how they all look different. So yeah, they a lot of them are mixed too.
Mm-hmm.
It's ancient history. It's interesting. They don't teach you this in schools. You gotta look for the information yourself.
Well, where are you from?
Where you think? Where you think I'm from, Miss?
Maybe Louisiana.
No, I'm from Texas.
Interesting. Not too far away.
Are you in Houston?
No, I'm saying Louisiana is right next to Texas.
Yeah, I'm in Texas, so I'm not too far from the border from Louisiana, so
Mm-hmm.
that's just right next door to Houston. So
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me read what this person is saying. They're saying, "Hello, sisters. I'm inclined to believe all of the north from Egypt to Morocco were black, non-Caucasian, And what we see today is a mixture of people resulting from Greek-Arab conquest. Of course, absolutely, positively, absolutely. But what I really wanted to show you guys is the map of the Nile. So this Google Maps doesn't make it very clear, but the Nile actually starts here. Some even argue that it starts down here in Burundi, right here, and from these bodies of water right here. But the Nile is connected to Lake Victoria, which is in Uganda. Part of it's in Uganda, part of it's in Kenya, part of it's in Tanzania. I mean, I don't know. I mean, listen, everybody here, they are as Black African as they can be.
Oh yeah, they are. Definitely.
Now
my dad is a Black man. He's like a real African man, but they are darker than him.
Yes.
Dark.
But they have, a lot of people from Tanzania, depending on the tribe, depending on the ethnic group, they have different features from people. A lot of people in Kenya, or a lot of people in, Uganda or Burundi or Rwanda, right?
Mm.
But it doesn't make them non-Black. Like, I have seen people tell me that, okay, ancient Egyptian people may have had dark skin, Black skin, but they were still, I've had people write in my comments that they were Black Caucasians. They're like, well, they have Black skin, but they're still white racially. And I'm like, how what are the mental gymnastics that you have to go through? Like, think about the mental gymnastics you would have to go to really believe that.
Oh dear, excuse me. Oh, crikey.
Well, that's not true. They just making stuff up. They just claiming to be everything now.
Mind you, I have seen some stupid comments in your video, under your videos, in the comments section.
Oh, right now on this video. Hold on.
Excuse me.
Are you talking about the stupid comments on this particular video or other ones?
No, in your past ancient Egyptian videos.
Mm-hmm.
Not this one, no.
Gotcha. It's crazy. Oh, why is this doing this? Okay, here we go. Finally. Okay. Well, this looks like a pretty good picture. The internet is so slow. Okay. These pictures are really giving me a hard time. Okay. I wanted you to see this picture because it kind of shows very clearly where it starts. So I'm on Wikipedia. Let me see. Can you guys see that very clearly?
I can see it.
Okay, great. So as you can see,
I see it.
okay. Terrell, you can you have to mute the YouTube video or like turn it off because there's like an echo. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in to show you where it starts. As you can see, it starts here in Lake Victoria. And then you have this darker blue line that goes all the way up, all the way up to Egypt and empties out into the Mediterranean Sea. Okay? Now, Lake Victoria is in Tanzania, part of it is in Kenya, and another part is in Uganda. There are other sources of the Nile too, like Lake Tana in Ethiopia. Okay? And this is the Blue Nile. This is another source of the White Nile. The Blue Nile from Lake Tana. Now, a lot of anthropologists have confirmed that the first human beings originated in East Africa. Some argue whether that's Ethiopia or Kenya, okay? But in this general area. So I saw a video of someone actually saying that the first people to come to Egypt, actually came from Western Asia. And I think that is absurd because you have a Nile, you have the source of Egypt, the source of Egyptian civilization, which is the Nile, and it starts in deep within Black Africa. So what these people are really saying is before Black Africans simply hopped on a boat to take the northward flowing Nile upward to these different countries, somehow Africans migrated out of Africa, inhabited Asia, and then came back into Africa to inhabit Egypt. Think about how ridiculous that sounds. They're saying, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. They're saying before someone simply took a boat and took it with the current, which goes straight upward. It literally flows from Uganda. No, the most southern port is Tanzania. It literally flows from Tanzania all the way up to the Mediterranean Sea, emptying out of Egypt. But apparently, before someone simply took a boat and took the tide upward, took the stream upward, took the current upward, they had to leave Africa altogether, become another race, become non-Black. They became non-Black Africans and then entered Egypt again. They entered Egypt. I mean, like, it's absurd. If you really think that the first people in Egypt were these Middle Eastern, Near Eastern Asians, I mean, you're a lost cause. I mean, like, you have no ability to use logic or common sense. But I just wanted you to see this. Also, I lived in Alexandria. I lived here, the very north of Egypt, and I've gone to the North Shore where you get to, like, you know, relax on the Mediterranean Sea. And the Mediterranean Sea is very violent. It is very difficult to swim in it, to do anything in the Mediterranean Sea. A lot of people die simply, like, you know, wanting to swim or wade in the water. Trust me when I tell you, people did not easily cross the Mediterranean. And I'm telling you now, people did not leave Africa, become European, and then come to Egypt before someone simply took a boat up the Nile River. It just didn't happen.
That sounds very desperate.
But this is what they argue. There's a very common video, actually. It has like, I think it definitely has hundreds of thousands of likes. And the guy is arguing, saying the original people of North Africa came from the Sinai, or like they had to pass through the Sinai from the Near East. And I'm like, well, how? How does that make any sense? Africans had always been in Africa, all over Africa. Anyway, so I wanted to show you that.
You know, like how Hebrew is like an ancient language,
Mm-hmm.
like a Semitic language, then surely the hieroglyphics would be in a Semitic language if they did come from that region.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. They're not in the language.
Right.
That's one indicator. They just sound like African names. They sound completely African.
It really does. It really does. I want to read some of this to you from the Wikipedia site. Right here it says, the Nile is a major north-flowing river in northeastern Africa. Okay. It says here, its drainage basin covers 11 countries: Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Egypt, Ethiopia, Eritrea, South Sudan, Republic of the Sudan, and Egypt. Look, 10 out of these 11 countries are black, 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 and black.
Doesn't Sudan have more pyramids than Egypt?
Yes, it has over 200.
Crikey. Did you travel further down to Sudan?
I got to the border. They wouldn't let me in at the time. Trump had the Muslim ban, and they were like, we're not letting Americans pass this now that Trump has banned Muslims. So unfortunately, I didn't get to cross the border. I didn't.
Oh,
but
God.
Just understand that the 10 out of the 11 Nile Basin countries are widely accepted and considered to be Black African countries, except for Egypt. So somehow in the sea of blackness all around the Nile, somehow Egypt magically wasn't Black. Somehow the very first people all around these Black countries of the Nile Basin, they never touched Egypt. This is what people are saying. Like, inadvertently, this is what they are arguing. What else? I wanted to show you. What else does it say? It says the Nile has two major tributaries, the White Nile and the Blue Nile. The White Nile is considered to be the headwaters and primary stream of the Nile itself. The Blue Nile, however, is the source of most of the water, containing 80% of the water and silt. Woo! Silt! Don't they always talk about silt in ancient Egyptian textbooks? And where's the Blue Nile? The Blue Nile? The Blue Nile is only in Sudan and Ethiopia. Wow. The blackest people come from Sudan. Look at this. It says most of the water from the Nile and the silt come from the Blue Nile. And the Blue Nile is in only Sudan and Ethiopia. Something to think about.
I mean, that video you put up years ago, or a while ago, of you with the native Egyptians from Upper Egypt, which is Lower Egypt these days. They have a similar complexion to sub-Saharan Africans.
Right. Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Miss Tripp, can you hear me better now without the echo? Or you still can hear it?
Yes.
Oh, you only hear the echoing?
No, I don't hear it echoing.
All right. I think I might have fixed it.
Good. Okay, so this is the Big Moor says the Nubians are indigenous to Egypt. Yes, they are. Actually, there's an article from the New York Times. Just Google. Actually, I might just Google New York Times Nubian artifacts, and there's proof that the very first people to establish a kingdom and a monarchy in Egypt were Nubian. Ancient Egypt, outside of Nubia, got its first pharaohs, its first symbolisms, and its first ruling structures from Black Nubia, which existed before Egypt. Black Nubia existed in what is today southern Egypt and northern Sudan before Egypt was a thing. Egypt got everything from Nubia.
That's right.
All of its fundamental ruling structures, it got from Nubia. All of its fundamental symbolisms, it got from Nubia. All of the first pharaohs came from Nubia. Black Nubia. So if the first pharaohs are coming from an ancient black civilization, then what were the first Egyptians? And then the guy Kev says it's crazy because I am African American and I took a DNA test and I had ancestry all over Africa. In the West, the South, Central, East, and North, including Sudan, South Sudan, and Egypt. This is what people don't understand about Black Americans, right? Black Americans are literally a hodgepodge of all of Africa. Like, they stole people from everywhere. There were actually several slave ships that ended up in the Western Hemisphere, that ended up in the Americas, that came from Sudan and Egypt. Several. There was an infographic. You can look up slave ship infographic. It shows all the dots that left the African continent and moved into the Western Hemisphere. We're talking about North America, the Caribbean, South America. So we literally have ancestry from all of Africa. But apparently Egypt is hands off because they really want us to believe that, you know, as Black people, we are inferior in our, and we don't come from an ancestry of greatness. We don't come from people who have built anything. So this is why they try so hard to tell us that we have no connection to a country in Africa, even though we originate from Africa. Like, we are part of the African diaspora.
The whole continent was pretty much colonized. Nearly all of it was colonized.
Right. Absolutely. GD Bailey says, I have ancestors everywhere in Africa except the South. I took a DNA test a few years ago. And the thing is, so, I mean, some Black Americans will have, I mean, obviously a lot of us will have a predominant West African ancestry. But then there are some who have very little African ancestry. There are some of us who have predominantly South African ancestry, Central African ancestry, North African ancestry. Like, it's literally like a mixed bag. African American, we have some of the most varied genetics.
Do you know of Lonnie? Is it Lonnie Love? Is that her name?
Yeah, from The Real, I think.
Is it The View or The Real? I don't know what it is.
I think it's The Real.
She did a test, and she was from. Our ancestry was from, the Bantu people as well. She got and further south from there, and I thought that was interesting. So it's not just all, like you said, it's not all just West African origin. It's all over.
Right. Hey, Jessica.
Hello.
So I wanted to finish reading some of the stuff from the Nile. So it says, right now is longer and rises in the Great Lakes region region of Central Africa, with the most distant source still underdetermined, but located in either Rwanda or Burundi. So they're saying the most distant source of the Nile is all the way in Rwanda or Burundi. That's deep in Black Africa, just in case you didn't know. It flows north. It says it right here. It flows north through Tanzania, Lake Victoria, Uganda, and South Sudan. The Blue Nile begins in Lake Tana in Ethiopia. It flows into Sudan from the north, from the southeast. The two rivers meet just north of the Sudanese capital of Khartoum. It says the northern section of the river flows north almost entirely through the Sudanese desert to Egypt. So you're talking about a river that has to go through all those Black African countries before it gets to quote unquote non-Black Egypt. But somehow no Black person took a boat and just flew up and just took the northward flow of the Nile. This is what these people are saying. These people are saying that this never happened, that the very first people of Egypt came from somewhere in the Near East, in Western Asia. Y'all, this is what they're saying. It's absurd.
Do you know what I find annoying is when people of Arabic descent, who are Egyptian nationality, and they say, "Oh, the African Americans try to claim Egypt as their own country because their cultural heritage was stolen from them." And it's like what you said. Well, Europeans all over claim European history as something they identify with. So why can't African Americans in the diaspora identify with a rich history and a culture like Egypt in Africa?
You know what, Alma? I had this conversation. I was going back and forth. I really should stop doing this. I was going back and forth in the comment section on my original "The Real Egyptians Are Black" video. And someone said something similar, like, "You have no relationship to North Africa or Egypt." And I'm like, okay, fine. I don't know. I haven't taken a DNA test yet, but fine. I'll take that at hand. Now, let's take what you're saying is true, okay? I can still talk on it because I'm a part of the African diaspora. Listen, they never say this about white people, particularly white academics who like to claim the ancient Greek and Roman civilizations. I mean, like, you have Anglo-Saxon from, Germanic ethnic groups creating whole classics departments. Y'all, Google classics department. Go into Google and put classics department. You will find countless academic departments in universities all over the world. Bunch of old white people who have no type of Roman or Greek ancestry claiming and obsessing over the ancient Southern European civilizations of ancient Roman, ancient Greek. But no one says anything to them. No one tells these Germanic or Anglo-Saxon white people that they cannot claim Southern European history.
And they are distinct ethnicities. They're not the same ethnicities either in Europe. Just like Africa's got different ethnicities, so does Europe. So, but it's one rule for them, I guess.
Let me read some of these. You're absolutely right, Alma. I'm gonna have to go soon because my camera's about to die, and the live stream has been going on for like an hour. But I want to read these comments. Read the last ones from the Nile Wikipedia page. But Jessica Hicks said, "I just saw a video where a scientist is surprised that after examining a pharaoh, it can clearly has a Nubian nose and dense bone. All that show they are Nubian. Then he says race doesn't matter. Of course, it matters until race doesn't matter until you start talking about how ancient Egypt was black. Race is all simple until you start talking about how ancient Egypt is black. I mean, this is what they do." She said these scientists spend all of their money to figure out the race, though. It's comical. I mean, it's crazy. But let me just read this last part of the Nile tape on Wikipedia. It says, "The northern section of the Nile River flows entirely through the Suez Desert to Egypt, then ends in the large delta and flows into the Mediterranean Sea. Egyptian civilization and Sudanese kingdoms have depended on the river since ancient times. Most of the population and cities of Egypt lie along those parts of the Nile Valley north of Aswan, and nearly all of the cultural and historical sites of ancient Egypt are found along the Nile riverbanks." Look, I'm going to read this again. Nearly all the cultural and historical sites of ancient Egypt are found along the Nile riverbanks. The riverbank of a river that flows to 10 Black African countries before it actually gets to Egypt.
And in one of those African countries, they have more pyramids in Sudan, but I guess the white people built those as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Aliens, bro. It was aliens. Black people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course, aliens.
It was aliens. That's what they say.
It was a xenomorph.
Black people can't do nothing. That's how can we justify dehumanizing them. Of course they didn't build great civilizations. That is why we are justified in enslaving them and in dehumanizing them for centuries. This is why they tell you that Egypt has nothing to do with the rest of Black Africa. Even though the very source of Egypt's existence, the Nile, flows through 10 Black African countries before it even gets to Egypt. But apparently, the Nile that flows from the south through 10 Black African countries couldn't carry up Black African people. That flows northward. Y'all, it's crazy. It's insane. Yo, Malak. I have said this before. Actually, the comedian Louis C.K. has made this joke as well. He also argued that white people are aliens. Malak says, I think the so-called white man is alien from somewhere else. I mean, if you look up Louis C.K., white people are aliens, there's a whole skit. He does a whole comedy skit on that. And remember, in comedy, the reason why it's funny is because it holds and contains pieces of truth, right? Anyway, no, they're definitely different. I'll just say that.
Oh, Universe, you should do a YouTube video about the possibility of Caucasians originating from Mars. I think you should do that.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready. We can make the video.
I mean, it might as well be satire, so...
I agree. Maybe we can make a funny skit. Maybe when I go to Europe, we can meet up and do a funny skit together.
You can go around touching European people's hair and go, ooh, can I touch it?
How long you been in Egypt, UniverseTrip?
You can just call me Universe. So I lived in Egypt for 2.5 years.
You liked it?
It was very challenging, but I did like it.
They respected you and nice to you?
Were the people nice to me? Yeah. For the most part.
I might have to go one day.
Yeah, I think you should. Hey, radio.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, peace, sister. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, great. Yeah, well, I don't have that much time. Just how about maybe 15 to 20 minutes? Because I got to get running. But yeah, I saw the live stream here and I just couldn't help but to join in. Yeah.
I'm so happy you came in. Mind you, I mean, you guys can carry on the conversation if my camera dies, because it's like being that. I know you make a lot of content. Everyone, you should go check out Radio One's channel. You can put a link of your channel in the live stream chat if you'd like, so that people can go follow you.
Oh yes, indeed. Also, I have a new channel called Pharaoh Mitzrayim. Yeah. And I'll post a link for that as well. Let's see here.
Okay, great, thank you. But let me read this comment from Moshe. So Moshe said, "Yes, indeed, it's hypocrisy at its best." Okay, so Moshe said, "Yes, indeed, it's hypocrisy at its best." Joel Freeman been having lectures how Eurocentrics been whitewashing Egypt since 1947. The main goal is to deny the truth no matter what the cost. Absolutely. Even if it costs their sanity or ability to be logical. Jessica Hicks wants the video. Thank you, Jessica. All right.
This is why I love Michael Jackson's Remember the Time video. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was sharing some sharing some truth. But anyway, I'm pretty much done. I just wanted to go over these articles because it's important to think critically about what we've been told. And I'm gonna let Radio drop his stuff. And then thank you guys for coming up. Thank you, Terrell. Thank you, Alma. Thank you, Radio. We'll do more as more evidence surfaces. We'll do more videos on this topic. and we will continue.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say something right quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I posted my channels as well. But what people have to understand is the root of this lie that the ancient Egyptians were Caucasian stems from the Bible. It all comes from the Bible, and I must make it known that I'm not a believer of the Bible, but you know, I do study the Bible, and I know that the words used in the Bible for Egypt, such as the land of Ham, Mizraim, Cush, and Foot and Canaan, those words are found in records that predates the writing of the Bible, and it existed long before the Bible was even created. So any ideal that the Bible that history borrowed from the Bible is incorrect. But truth be told, the Bible borrowed from history because history predates the Bible. The Bible was not written by a man named Moses, because according to the Bible, Moses recorded his own death, and if Moses recorded his own death, then the Bible could not have been written by Moses. And this is where, I'm not going to be long, but this is where the lie originates from. It originates from the Bible. It is a lie that should have never been told, because according to the Bible, no man named Ham or no descendants of Ham ever migrated into Africa or into land of Ham or into the land of Ham from anywhere. But the Bible only mentions a man named Abram, who is a descendant of Shem, who migrated from the land of Shem in Asia into Africa, the land of Ham. That is the only reason why Ham is associated with the Noah's flood story. That is the only reason. And that's where the lie started from, and it should have never been told because it is not even supported by the Bible. It was made up by later scholars because of racism and white supremacy, and they twisted the Bible, and they did not study the Bible and did not tell the truth about the Bible. But truth be told, there was never a Caucasian race or race of foreigners coming from Mesopotamia into Africa before the only documented historical documented invasion from Mesopotamia, from the Tigris Euphrates region into Africa, is the Assyrian conquest. When the Assyrians conquered Egypt, that is the first migration that took place from Mesopotamia into Africa. But before that, there was no migration. You had the Hyksos migration, but that came from Canaan. The Hyksos invasion came from Canaan. But even before the Hyksos, there was no migration coming from anywhere into Africa. So this ideal that Asiatics coming into Africa and becoming the founders of Egypt is a bold-faced lie, and it's not supported by any source of history. But it was only made up by later racist white supremacists. And it's
this is radio. This is exactly what I've been trying to say with my analysis of the Nile River, right? Like I had, for a while I had a map of the Nile, and I'm like, the Nile starts deep within Black Africa. Like people say the most distant points of the Nile start in Burundi and Rwanda. And if you look at the map, Lake Victoria is directly connected to the Nile, and that's in Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, right? So it's like when people say, oh, the native people of this African country came from the Near East, from Western Asia, what they're really saying is, I can't think logically enough to accept the fact that the very first people who existed in East Africa simply hopped on a boat and took the northward flowing Nile up. Africans had, literally what they're saying is Africans had to leave Africa, become ethnically Asian, and then enter Africa again via Egypt. It is absurd.
Yeah, that makes no sense. That makes no
That's what,
sense. And
that's what
yeah,
they're saying.
yeah, and it's not supported by any source of history at all. Yeah, no source of history says that the founders of Egypt left Africa and came back into Africa from Asia. No, the history doesn't say that. Okay, the first historical foreign invasion into Africa is the Hyksos invasion. Okay, so if you're talking about any invasion from Asia before the Hyksos, then you're it's a lie. You know, there's no source to support it. And
I think I mean, it's beyond me how they can sit here and really say that, you know, Africans had to literally leave Africa, become ethnically Asian, and then enter Africa again instead of just simply taking a boat up the Nile.
It's so dumb.
yes, I mean, because that's
I mean,
not supported by history. It's just
if you look at the Nile, if you've ever been on the Nile, it literally naturally flows northward from Lake Victoria or Lake Tana. Lake Tana is in Ethiopia, and Lake Victoria is in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. It literally flows from these lakes upward. So you're telling me the Black Africans that had already existed didn't simply take a boat upwards? They had to leave Africa, become ethnically Asian, and then traverse a whole desert and then come back?
yeah, that's
I mean,
yeah, because that what they do is they twist history and twist history and make it fit their own agenda, make it fit what they want to believe, and that is what's going on. You know, it's just simply made up. There's no historical record to support it, and yeah, and you are correct. I mean, the Nile River, it is a long river, and like the closest people that we see in the hieroglyphics to the ancient Egyptians are these people known as the people of Punt, or the people of the land of Punt, which is in the Horn of Africa. And the Horn of Africa is also where the Blue Nile starts. And the Blue Nile, I would call, because the land of Punt, they reach the land of Punt by the Red Sea coast.
The Blue Nile starts in Ethiopia. It comes from it directly comes from Lake Tana in Ethiopia.
Yes, correct. And the thing about it is the land of Punt, which they call the land of gods, and they call it also the land of their ancestors as well. The Blue Nile is like maybe a few hundred miles away into the interior of the land of Punt, which is the Red Sea coast. So it's not even that far. So it's like then you have the White Nile, you know, which is the other river. You know, you had the Blue Nile and the White Nile, and the people along the White Nile, they look a lot like the Nubians, you know, like the people of South Sudan and in Uganda, and the people over in the Horn of Africa, you know, they look a lot like the ancient Egyptians. But it was these two people from this area that came together and inhabited the Nile region of Egypt.
Right.
Yeah, and because you know when you go south, you see the Nubians, who look a lot like the people of Uganda, the South Sudanese, and then you see the Egyptians.
They're very Black. I mean, in my first reel, I took footage of me spending time in a Nubian village, and it's like, you know, I asked every last one of them, like, they I mean, you didn't even have to ask them, honestly. They would just tell you, like, we Black Africans. Like, they're resentful of Arabs. They say Arabs colonized them, took their land, right? And I mean, they will tell you this. They will tell you that they are Black African. They will tell you that they were colonized by Arabs. But I think it's really funny now because Egypt is having a lot of problems with Ethiopia because Ethiopia has the power to cut off their water supply through the Nile.
Yes, I heard about that.
They have beef. They have a lot of beef. They have a dam that they're trying to build. And Ethiopia has a lot of power over the Nile and how it flows. But, you know.
Yeah, because Ethiopia is suffering because of that. because a lot of people are going without water, so they need that dam to in order to to supply more water and more electricity to Ethiopians that are suffering because of that.
Right.
And
The thing is, it's like people are very willing to be like, oh yeah, the Nile is the source of Egyptian civilization, but they're not willing to accept the implications of what they're saying. The implications of what they're saying is that the source of the Nile, the source of Egyptian population is also the Nile, and the Nile starts deep within Black Africa. See my camera.
Yes, correct. And that is the main reason. That is the main reason why the Egyptians are Black, because they came from that area.
Of course.
And if they had came from the Middle East, then they would look exactly like Middle Easterners. But we clearly see on the walls that they distinguish themselves from the Middle Easterners. And it shows that they came from that region. Now, there is a theory that the founders of Egypt came from the Western Desert, which I do not agree with. And it is a theory that most scholars try to agree on. But
you should ask them. But you should ask them. Okay, if ask them. Well, if all the scholars are inconsistent or are consistent with agreeing that ancient Egyptian civilization comes from the Nile, then if ancient Egyptian civilization comes from the Nile, how come the people don't come from the Nile? How come the ancient people don't come from the Nile? How can a civilization come from the Nile but not the people?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
just ask anybody tell you, if anyone ever tells you, oh, the ancient Egyptians come from Western Asia, the ancient Egyptians come from the Western Desert, whatever. Just be like, okay, do you agree that ancient Egyptian civilization is sourced by the Nile? It comes from the Nile? They're going to be like, yeah, of course it does. Of course the Nile is the source of ancient Egyptian civilization. They're going to agree. And then you're going to be like, okay, well, if the source of ancient Egyptian civilization is the Nile, then that means the Nile is also the source of ancient Egyptian people. And the Nile starts in Black Africa.
Yes, exactly. Makes perfect sense.
Just say that to them. Just say that to them, and they will not be able to say anything to you.
Yes, exactly, man. You said it. Yeah, you hit it right on the nail. Yeah, you hit it right on the nail when you said it. Because now the Western Desert theory is, I don't believe that the ancient Egyptians never left the Nile, and the only time that they left the Nile is when they were attacked and conquered by the Assyrians. And then that's when we hear the ancient Egyptians leaving the Nile and going south and southwest into the interior parts of Africa. And we hear of a people called the Amunians, the worshippers of Am and the worship of Zeus. We find them in the Western Desert and in the western parts of Africa, in Sudan as well. And that is when the ancient Egyptians began to migrate south and west and southwest. And that is the only time where they left the Nile, because that was the first time that Egypt was ever attacked by a foreign race of people and were conquered, and they never regained from it. And this caused a migration to the south and west of Egypt, and that is the only time where I say that they left the Nile. But before that, they always dwelt along the Nile.
They did. The Nile. Every historian will agree and say the Nile is the source of ancient Egyptian civilization, ancient Egyptian prosperity, ancient Egyptian everything, but not the people. That don't make no sense. So I'm gonna read some of these comments. Jessica Hicks says, right, people lie, but geography doesn't. We've been told many lies, but they will come to light in due time. And then Moshe Newsletter says the Bible is a new name of what is called the Torah, even before that it was founded in ancient Sumerian tablets. It was found in ancient Sumerian tablets. This information has been altered by the First Council of Nicaea. Okay. Big Morris says the Nubians founded the Old Kingdom of Egypt, Nubian Majay people. Absolutely. There wasn't. If you guys Google New York Times Nubian artifacts, there is artifact. There are artifacts. That prove that the very first kingdom in Egypt came from Black Nubia. Egypt got its first pharaohs, its first symbolisms, and its very first ruling structures from Black Nubia. there would be no Egypt without Black Nubia. And then Moshe is telling you preaching radio. You should go unfollow him, Moshe. And then Tim Cameron says the ancient Egyptians were indigenous to Africa and the Nile Valley, and there is no archaeological evidence that support they came from the Mediterranean or the Near East. Absolutely no evidence. But there are people who will sit here and say that they came from the Near East, and it's crazy. It makes no sense. I mean, there's a very popular video on YouTube that has hundreds of thousands of views where this man is talking about the very first people of North Africa came from the Near East. How was that even possible when Africans were already in Africa? The very first people to exist were in Africa. How is that even possible? And then Tim Cameron says they were Africans culturally, linguistically, and biologically. And then Saka Weki says, why do people want to claim their culture? I mean, white people have stolen Egyptian art. They got a whole bunch of stolen Egyptian artifacts sitting up in those European museums.
Yeah, London.
I don't know. Why don't you go to the Europeans who stole all of those artifacts and you go ask them why? You go ask those Europeans why they have African artifacts sitting in their museums. Go ask them.
Yeah, and that is the same reason why they kidnapped African slaves as well. You know, they kidnapped the artifacts and put them in the museums, and they kidnapped the slaves and put them on the plantations
and put them in zoos as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and but
I want to read this one. Michael Alser says there's no continuous history on the Nile that shows a source of development outside of Africa. You can see all forms of pyramids around the Nile in Kemet and Nubia, not the case in Asia. Right. If these people came from Asia, where are the pyramids and these artifacts sitting up in Asia?
Exactly. No connection. Yeah, those are questions that that they're not going to be able to answer.
But they came from Asia, though. They came from Asia.
They're aliens.
Oh yeah, they're aliens. You're right. But anyway, thank you guys for coming. I have to go now.
One question before you leave. I noticed some white people, when they talk about the skin color of the Egyptians, like the drawings and the paintings, the ancient paintings, they like to argue that the actual color, like some of them the people in the paintings are painted black. They like to argue that the color was in place to show a social hierarchy, and it didn't actually mean literally. Have you heard that argument yet?
Yeah, I think I haven't actually heard the social hierarchy one. I've heard a spiritual argument, like they had different unknown spiritual meanings. That's why they painted people like white or green.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Moshe. Thank you. I hope you come on and enjoy the panel one day, because you were the one that sent me the article about how. Oh, Radio, did you get to see the article I shared earlier about how King Tut died from sickle cell?
Yeah, I read about that like long ago. Is there a new article?
No, Moshe sent me. So thank you, Moshe, for the super chat. But Moshe sent me an article. Let me pull it up. Let me show you. Let me show you the article he pulled up. And I was just like, wow, this is brilliant. Because you know who gets sickle cell?
Yeah, Africans.
Black Africans get sickle cell.
No, aliens.
Okay, so this is the article that Moshe sent. Thank you, Moshe. This says King Tut died from sickle cell disease, not malaria. Okay, and then it goes on to explain this. But it's very telling. And then I pulled up another article from Kaiser Permanente. This is a YouTube video from Kaiser Permanente. There are doctors that explain that 90% of the people in America who get sickle cell are Black. They're African. So all of these people trying to say African Americans have absolutely no ties to Egypt. I mean, okay, okay, if you want to say we don't have any direct ties, sure, whatever, but we don't have direct ties to Africa, period. Because a lot of us have been here for, I mean, we are not first, second, third generation Americans. Like, we have been here for centuries.
Yes,
so,
yes.
it's like, okay, either way you put it, we don't have direct ties to Africa, but we are still a part of the African diaspora.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a lie they want you to believe. African Americans do have ties to Egypt because the migration did take place. You know, that's a fact. The migration from that went across the Western Desert into the Niger River in that region did take place, and this was known as the a caravan road from Egypt to Ghana, which that is spoken of by the medieval historians. Speaking of a caravan road that's connected with Egypt, from Egypt to Ghana, and this caravan road continued to be used during the time of the Songhai Empire and the Mali Empire. There was a road that went from Egypt to West Africa, and this road was founded by the Egyptians from an east to west migration.
And,
you know,
it makes sense because the very first Africans to come into existence were from East Africa. So in order for Africans to migrate the rest of the continent, they'd have to come from East Africa.
Yes, correct. And
West Africans were not the first Africans. West Africans come from East Africans.
Yes. And the truth is, like, there were already people in West Africa, but you had newcomers who came from the Nile Valley, and these two mixed together, and they became later known as the Ethiopians. And that's when you read classical history, we hear of a people called Ethiopians, and this was the migration that took place from East Africa to West Africa, and that's what they don't tell you.
But I'm glad this came out today. I might pull up some of the tweets that Amma was talking about. But first, let me play this. This question here on YouTube says, is it true that sickle cell disease only affects African Americans?
That's a good question. Well, the majority of the people with sickle cell disease in the United States are of African American descent. So 90%. That's 1 in 500 births in the African American population will have sickle cell disease. However, it doesn't just affect people who are African American. It affects our Hispanic population. It affects those of Middle Eastern descent, that are of Indian descent, and Mediterranean. So it's a disease that we all should be aware of because it could affect.
I mean, point blank period, 90% of the people who have sickle cell are Black.
Yes, and also you have the DNA of Ramesses III. That's closer to African Americans. And they don't tell you that as well. But yeah, there's definitely a connection there. And we know the invasions or the conquest of Egypt, caused the armies and the kings, the queens, and the royal elites to flee south and west. And many of the regular population remained in Egypt, and put up with the foreigners. But a lot of the elites, such as the kings and the armies, they were the ones that fled out of Egypt into other parts of Africa. It's impossible for them to have stayed there because it would make no sense. If they had stayed there, then that means no conquest took place. And we know that a conquest took place, and we know that the Egyptians and kings and royal elites did flee south and west of Egypt because that was the only direction they could go.
Right.
Yes. Also, I put my my links in your private chat as well. I don't know if you see them or not.
In the public, did you put it in the public so that the people can subscribe to you?
Let's see here. I don't think I can. I just put them. I was only able to put them in a private chat.
Let me find the private. Why is it showing? Let me read this. Hold on. Yikes.
Because I think there's something that you got to do in order to put it to the public. Yeah. Because I'm only able to put it in the private chat.
Right. This is okay. Fine, I found it. Okay, great. Gotcha. Thank you. I will. Everybody should go subscribe to Radio One. I'm gonna post both of the channels.
Yes. Yeah, I'm revealing a lot of truth on those channels, and I'm doing it for free. I don't charge any money or anything like that. I do it out of the love of my people, and I do it because the truth has to be told, and that's the only reason why I'm doing it. It's not about money; it's all about the truth.
Right. So I posted the two channels. You can go check them out. Here's the first one. I just highlighted it on the screen. You can check the chat, and then here's the second one. So you can click on those and subscribe.
Yes.
Check it out.
Yes. Thank you very much, sister. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Hey, Thunder Scorpion. Hey. Okay, thank you. But I'm looking at some of these comments here, Alma, that you were referring to.
Oh gosh.
They do look a little sad. I'll just say
sad.
Yeah, that's
sad.
Oh, dear
like some of these
Lord.
right here. Like, look at this white guy. Look, he's white, and he says, "Oh my goodness." He says they don't look Egyptian. The Mediterranean area has been trading and socializing and conquering since forever.
Okay.
In my opinion, there is such a thing as Arabs. Water attracts while mountain deserts divide. The Sahara, what desert is where Africa and Mediterranean? Listen, like you said, water attracts, just like the Nile River goes through 10 Black African countries. It attracts Black African people to Egypt.
Yeah, and that's the.
I'm sorry.
That's one of the biggest lies going around, is that Egypt was a Mediterranean civilization. It was not. Okay, because the Nile River does not flow through the Mediterranean. It flows from the interior of Africa. So Egypt was a Nile Valley civilization, not a Mediterranean civilization.
Oh, someone is here, Hassan. Hey.
Hey, I don't want to interrupt, but I would like to say something, but I don't want to interrupt. Nice to speak with you.
Okay, Radio, you can continue, and then Hassan can go.
Oh yes. I just wanted to say that that Egypt was not a Mediterranean civilization. We know that Rome was a Mediterranean civilization. Greece was a Mediterranean civilization, and even Canaan in that area was not a Mediterranean civilization. So that's like geographically incorrect, because the Nile River does not flow through the Mediterranean. And when you go further south, the farther you get from the Mediterranean. As a matter of fact, the Nile River is even closer to the Red Sea than it is to the Mediterranean. The only part of the Nile River that's close to the Mediterranean is the Nile Delta, the northern part of Egypt. When you go further south, it gets away from the Mediterranean. So it is incorrect to say that Egypt is a Mediterranean civilization when it is not. It is a Nile Valley civilization. Yeah, but you can go ahead, Hassan. Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, when I was first, I am like around college age, but like when I was first, when you first hear about ancient Egypt, when you first learn about them, it's very ambiguous, and it's very interesting to see how people will essentially say we can't talk about race. And I think all of us are like socially conscious people here. We know race is a social construct but it's important, right? It still affects people's lives. It's like a life or death thing. But they, instead of sort of trying to get to the truth of the matter, which is what historians and anthropologists are meant to do, is really just to describe things as they are, you'd hope. There's this whole sort of meta discussion about like, is race really real? Can we apply race to the Egyptians? Because they don't want to address it. And I think
they want to apply race to everything else, though.
Correct, right? So they'll talk about the Great West and how the Greeks and Romans were great, and how this is Western civilization, and like the principles of these Greeks about democracy are translated to America today, and we took their their ideas and their thoughts, and there's this one shared white culture that has existed from the times of ancient Greeks until today. What they won't say is that the ancient Greeks learned everything that they know from the ancient Egyptians in terms of mathematics, in terms of building. The Greeks themselves attributed much of their knowledge to ancient Egyptians. People like Pythagoras. He was a psychopath, right? This is a man who's famous for the Pythagoras theorem, but the Egyptians already knew that, right? With 3, 4, 5 triangles. You don't build pyramids not knowing the Pythagorean theorem. I mean, it's a huge hurdle, right? But he came to Egypt, and people like Euclid invented Euclidean geometry, came to Egypt because they were so good at mathematics, right? You don't do that. You don't align the pyramids to the stars not being good at mathematics. But like everyone sort of acknowledges that ancient Egypt is sort of this really testament to like how smart human beings are, right? Like I look at what they did and like what they're studying back then, and I think, well, I'm a mathematician, but those seem like hard problems to me. Seems like a hard engineering problem for me. So it shows that humans have been smart all throughout time, but it also shows that the ideas that white men have introduced about race and how Africans are inferior and all of that are just bullshit. Promptly. I don't want to mean to curse on your stream. I'm sorry, but like,
okay, we curse all the time here.
Oh, okay, all right. But like, it's just so bullshit, right? The controversy of the Egyptians being black is a fabrication from the time of slavery, right?
No, they'll just say aliens. It was aliens, Hassan. Right? Aliens.
Wait, what did you say?
I mean, you said those are really hard mathematical problems, but they just say no, they weren't black.
Oh, yeah, it's either it's aliens or it's white people. I mean, so yeah, like during the time of slavery, that's when it started to become controversial because you read from like French scholars and anthropologists like, oh, clearly the Sphinx is black. No one who looks at the Sphinx can't tell me that looks a little bit like a Negro. I don't know, but it was not controversial.
I lived in Egypt for 2.5 years. I would constantly go to these historical sites and museums, and I kid you not, all the museums, there are so many statues with the nose ripped off of the statue. Like I thought it was just a Sphinx, like I thought it was just a Sphinx. I was like, oh, that's just one statue with a nose taken off of it. No, if you go to the Museum of Cairo, I mean, you will see hundreds of statues with the nose taken off of it. This isn't by coincidence, like at all.
But yeah, no, I actually am a fan of your channel. I think I watched one of your videos where you're talking about were the ancient Egyptians black, and you were playing with these kids from like Aswan or something like that. Yeah. Maybe they weren't from Aswan.
That was definitely in Aswan.
Yeah, those little black kids or whatever, Hamites, if you're a white historian. But like, yeah, I'm a fan of your channel. I think that if I could recommend someone for you to have a talk with, my aunt forever. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he makes really dope videos. Radio knows about him. He makes really dope videos about ancient Egypt, and I think you both are really smart, and I think it would be a good link up for you two to collaborate. I think I can send you his information. You have an email.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'll put my email in the chat, and then you can email me his information, and then Radio, you can email me too, and then we can set up like a live stream you guys like.
Oh, yes, great, yes, because I'm on my Art Forever channels all the time, and we always conversating and building up on certain topics. Yeah, also this I want to address this lie that ancient Egypt was a multicultural civilization, and it was not. And this makes no sense because the ancient Egyptians set up fortresses, for their borders, to keep foreigners out, and and before the Persian conquest, no foreigners were allowed in Egypt. Now, the only foreigners that were in Egypt were the war captives, the people that they caught from their wars, and they were the minorities in Egypt. So any ideal that Egypt was a multicultural civilization is not true, because before the Persian conquests, and it also speaks of before King Psammetichus, which is the first king of the 26th dynasty. He was the first to let Greeks in Egypt and let them settle there, without being war captives. So before that time, no foreigners were allowed in Egypt. So it is therefore impossible for Egypt to have been a multicultural civilization. But truth be told, Egypt was a black African ethno state. Okay. And it kept out foreigners. It did not allow foreigners in, because if they had did that, then it would have destroyed their whole civilization.
And
Just
yeah,
like it did.
and if I could, I don't know if this is flowing like a conversation, but like to give an example of what you're talking about, the 12th dynasty of ancient Egypt. This is like after the Old Kingdom is over, they split up, there was a civil war, and so this is the first dynasty of the Middle Kingdom, Montu Hotep. His there's this whole prophecy surrounding him that he created because he was born in Aswan, or rather, his mother came from Elephantine, and he created this prophecy about him. I think it's called the prophecy of Nefertiti or something like that. But he was quote unquote Nubian, and I don't want to say Nubian because like the first cataract of ancient Egypt is like sort of in Sudan, but they were Egyptian. Like there was no distinction really, and like only historians today are trying to be like, oh, they're Nubian because they look black or more black or whatever.
So actually, the New York Times. I'm gonna pull this up, but the New York Times has an article that proves that the very first people to establish a monarchy in Egypt and Sudan were Nubians. They were black Nubians. The very first pharaohs came from Nubia, black Nubia. The Egyptians got all of their foundational ruling structures from Nubia and all of their symbolism from Nubia. So they got everything from a black civilization.
Right. And every time, oh, go ahead.
Like it's not even, you can't debate this. Like they got every foundational aspect of their civilization from a black civilization.
Yeah, and every time ancient Egypt would fall apart, it was the people from the south or people from like Thebes or Aswan or Luxor today who would bring it back. Mentu Hotep or Montu Hotep, however you want to pronounce it, he would tell the Nubians, do not cross the first cataract, because the Nubians were a threat to ancient Egypt. People don't really, they only mention it during the 25th dynasty, but there were periods in Egypt's history where the Nubians almost destroyed the civilization. But even though he was quote unquote Nubian, he would not allow the Nubians to sort of just roll up into ancient Egypt because he saw himself as I'm Ramech or whatever the ancient Egyptians would call themselves. That is who I identify as. And so they had the same sort of energy or like double fold towards Asiatics. If you look at pharaohs like Sahore from the 5th dynasty, they would always talk about how we need to keep these Asiatics out, how I have smited the Asiatic, because the people from the Levant, people like the Hyksos, people like the Libyans would always try to come into Egypt and sort of, take power. And they weren't able to do that until like the dynasties were like dying out, and like far after the Nubians, around the time the Nubians started to take over during the 25th dynasty, so late period Egypt.
But I mean,
Yeah.
But just going back to your initial point, Hassan, it's just they have to dissociate Egypt with the rest of Black Africa in order to justify dehumanizing Black people today, right? Like they had.
Yeah, I think that's literally, if you look at, I don't know what's happening in the stream. Someone else talking. So if you look at the history of the Greeks, they are almost uniformly say that the ancient Egyptians were dark-skinned, that they had woolly hair, and that they had like thick lips. So the description of Black people. And they would always group them with the quote-unquote Ethiopians, which are just people south of Egypt. So that would be like Nubians, I guess. And the controversy only really happened once we started to get into slavery. And so if these people are subhuman, right? If Black people as a race are subhuman, how do we explain the greatness that we see in ancient Egypt. And so that's when they're like, okay, we got to find out something like, what do we?
Aliens.
There's also the Hermetic hypothesis, though. I know they're doing aliens now. Aliens is the new grift on the History Channel. They do nothing but programming on aliens for some reason. I used to watch it. 10 years ago, they were just like aliens. Yep, that they built the pyramids for some reason. But the first go was saying that the Egyptians were black Caucasians. And so if they didn't look black, I don't think they'd come up with a whole new race called Black Caucasians or Hermetic hypothesis or anything like that.
I mentioned this earlier. Like, they literally argue with me on my channel. Like, you see how many comments that first video has? It's crazy. Like, I think it may be up to like 4,000 comments right now. But it's like just obsessed maniacs talking about Black Caucasians, talking about how Black people try to steal everything when we don't have the fucking artifacts in our museums. Like, it's like the British have a whole museum with a bunch of stolen artifacts.
They could just
my
take them
local
over.
museum has got stolen. Well, I don't know if they're stolen for sure, but my local museum does have artifacts from ancient Egypt.
How else could they get them if they didn't steal them?
Yes, and like another thing that I find funny is when they show light-skinned Egyptians, they always try to associate those Egyptians with Caucasians and people of the Middle East, but they forget about the fact that we have light-skinned Africans, yeah, and they don't associate those light-skinned Egyptians with light-skinned Africans, and that's another a way, how they confuse people is that, when they show light-skinned Egyptians, they don't try to compare them to the light-skinned Africans, but they try to compare them to the people of the Middle East. And we know that the people of the Middle East, that they value their pale skin, and they rarely even mix with darker skinned people. They look down on darker skinned people. But we see the ancient Egyptians, many of them were mostly dark. Some were jet black, some were light skinned, but we know that those light skinned Egyptians, they were not Asiatics, but they were, what we call light skinned Africans. And and that's what they try to confuse people with that narrative.
Yeah, but UniverseTrip, they will see like so UniverseTrip has this video where she shows like a murals that are like 4,000 years old, and there's chocolate people. They will look at those chocolate people and tell you, well, they just depicted themselves like that because they thought it looked good. Or they'll show you Queen Taye with an afro and be like, oh, they thought it was fashionable. I'm just like, so they were blackfishing? The ancient Egyptians were just blackfishing. They were the rich Hodosiels of ancient times. And they just
the thing I say about those murals though, it's like, wow, that paint, like, think about after thousands of years, paint fades. It fades. So the fact that after thousands of years there's still that much pigment left, let you know that it was even darker when it was painted.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and that's why it is important. That's why it is important that we get this truth out, and that is why it is important that we keep the racists out of authority. We expose the racists, because we don't need the racists in the field of Egyptology, archaeology, or any of that. I
got something to tell you about Egyptology, because
yeah. I mean, but a lot of them also they're coming to terms, with the truth, and it is the racists who try to do slick things like that, like erase the color off the statues, and try to alter the color to make them light, and that has got to stop. And the only people who are doing this are the racists. Now there are many racists in the field of Egyptology, and that's why we have to expose them as well, and make sure they don't get any type of sole authority to commit that crime, and to distort history and alter history, because that's not right. It's a beautiful thing to see those statues with their colors still on them, well preserved, and it shows, it shows how they look. It is the closest it gets to how they look, and that's why it is important that that color and that preservation stays on those statues and on those tombs, and they are not to be messed with and altered with, and there should be like a serious consequence and punishment on those people
Mhm.
who do that, who commit that crime. But the best thing is to keep them out of power. Yeah.
And to be fair, there are some Egyptologists who just outright say that the ancient Egyptians are black. I was surprised that existed. So one of them is Dr. Stuart Tyson Smith. He is a PhD and he currently works at University of Santa Cruz, I believe.
Wait, can you post something for us?
Did I post something?
Like, can you post something in the chat for us to look at?
So yeah, I posted his quote and all of his information, but it says private chat. Should I post it in the comments?
Yeah, you did. You put it in the private chat. Okay.
I think I put it in the private chat instead of putting it in the
Let me see. Okay, thank
you. The right place. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, let me put it in the comments. That's not even the full quote. It got cut off. Yeah, it keeps on getting cut off. But I'll put the rest of the quote there. Because it's too long. And I'll just.
Thank you. Let me just. I'm gonna copy and paste it. Thank you.
Also, I mean, it's in the Encyclopedia of Ancient Egypt, 2001, Oxford Encyclopedia of Ancient Egypt. You can get the Z-Books to find it, but I can also give a sort of like a screenshot of the actual quote too in this private chat. But yeah, he works at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and he's worked on the Mummy. He reconstructed the language on the Mummy, and he also did the language for Stargate. So he's working.
Oh, I love those films.
I like the Mummy too. Stargate was very weird. I could not follow that, but I love the Mummy. But he says any characterization of race of the ancient Egyptians depends on modern cultural definitions, not on scientific study. And he says, thus by modern American standards, it is reasonable to characterize the ancient Egyptians as blacks, while also acknowledging the scientific evidence for the physical diversity of indigenous Africans. So basically, he's saying this. The ancient Egyptians were black. Is there still a need to use the word like black African? In his opinion, yes. In his opinion, there are people who are native to Africa who are not black. I think that's what he's trying to say in that quote. Africa is the most genetically diverse continent, but I'm not saying that means that all of the Berbers hail from North Africa. We know that, for instance, I believe her name is Joanne Fletcher. She's a very prominent Egyptologist. She was banned by Zahi Hawass because she had this theory about Nefertiti, I believe. But she was in this documentary on the Tashwina mummies. And so Tashwina is this area, modern day Libya, where they found this mummy. And they call it the Black Mummy. And it essentially shows that the population in North Africa, Libya today, was filled with black people, dark people. But as the Sahara dried up, because the moonstones went away, people left that area. And then later on, herders and nomads from the Levant came in. And so that's why this is about 10,000 years ago. So this is even more ancient than ancient Egypt. But, there are Egyptologists who concede that ancient Egyptians were black, that you would call them black today. It's just not something that they talk about often. And instead of acknowledging that or really grappling with the question, what they do is say, oh, the 25th dynasty was black, which is very odd because it's just what does that say about the others?
Right.
Yeah. I also want to add on that. Now, when I noticed that you mentioned the mummies. Now, when it comes to the mummies, now people get the wrong ideal that by looking at the mummies, because they have this wavy texture hair, that proves that they were not black. But what they don't understand is that they have that texture of hair, but they are still black. And yes, they are still black, and when we look at the modern population of Africa today, such as the Horn of Africa and the Western Sahara, among the Tuareg tribes, the Beja tribes of Sudan, the people of Ethiopia, Somalia. We see the same black people with that same hair texture, and they look no different from other Africans, and they look no different from African Americans. But the only difference is that they have that same texture of hair, and this, so it still proves that they are black because you have black people with that texture of hair.
And
European,
yeah, you don't even have to defend it like that because when you're dead, when bodies decay, the hair texture can change, and they use dyes and all sorts of stuff in ancient Egypt. So some Egyptologists will just say we don't know what the hair texture was when they find a mummy with like straight hair because it changes once they die. Ramses the second. If you argue with any sort of modern Egyptian today who's Arabic, they will bring up Ramses the second. And it's so funny because you look at his skeleton and he has red hair and it's so straight. But they tested his mummy, and if you look at a mural of Ramses the second or the third, his son, he looks like a black guy. Looks like any black guy you'd see on the street.
Yes.
But like he was E1B1A, tested by Zawi Hawass, and Zawi Hawass is no Afrocentric. Okay, this is the man who tried to cancel Beyonce because she was late to go see the pyramids. This is a man who said that just went on a random rant about how the Jews didn't build the pyramids or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's a lot of people in the Arab world have issues with Jewish people. I don't know what that is, but he is no sort of like Afrocentric. But if you're E1B1A, you have the same sort of subclade as a black man you might find in the Bronx today. So you can't just judge on. I mean, and then plus, I think that if you look at the origins of ancient Egypt, it's easier to sort of argue instead of just looking at like this one king versus this one king, because most of the people who talk on this subject, most of the laymen on the subject are completely ignorant. Like they could not even map out, okay, what is the new kingdom versus the middle kingdom versus the old kingdom. And Egyptologists always say that the old kingdom pharaohs are like the blackest of the black. And I can give you quotes by Petrie and whatnot, but I don't know. I'd like to let someone else jump in.
Yes, because when they did a study on the mummy of Ramesses, this guy named Carlton S. Kuhn, he found out that Ramesses, was more kin to the people of modern day Ethiopia in that area than they were to Europeans. So when you see these mummies with wavy hair, texture hair, and some even straight hair, they, although you may mistaken them for Europeans, they were not related to Europeans. They were nowhere related to the Europeans. They were they were more closer related to the people of Somalia in the Horn of Africa in that region. Although Somalia is 1,000 miles away from Egypt, but they were more related to the ancient Egyptians than any Middle Eastern people, European people, or any other people outside of Africa. And that's what people have to understand, because when they did these early bone comparison studies, DNA studies, the X-ray studies, they saw that these ancient Egyptians, the 18th dynasty mummies, the 19th dynasty mummies, they were closer to the Nubians in Sudan and the people of the Horn of Africa. And you see that same hair texture, those same features in the Horn of Africa and in the Nubia and Sudan. And those people are majority, and some are even 100% Black African without a single trace of European mixture in them, because they existed before Europeans. Africans with that texture hair existed before Europeans. For example, like the people, like the Aborigines of Australia, they have that same straight hair, but yet they're Black. The people of India, they're Black. They have straight hair. The people of the Solomon Islands, they have that wavy hair, but they're Black. They've been there. They existed before Europeans, and they're not mixed, but they're 100% Black. But they just have that texture hair.
I mean, I'm mixed race, and I got like wavy texture hair as well. So yeah.
Yes, me too. Yes, yeah, I have the same texture hair, and like when I cut my hair short, like it gets even straighter. It gets like Yeah, but when it grows long, it's like wavy and curly like. But when I cut it short, it gets even straighter, and that's why like when you look at the mummy of Ramesses II, the hair on this mummy is short, and that's why you will see that it's kind of straight. But you have the people of the Beja tribes as well, where they have that same type of straight hair, where they can where they can have a, use a pick and create a loose afro. But you still see that the texture of the hair is somewhat straight, but it sticks up, and that's the uniqueness of African hair. It varies. It comes in many different textures, and the hair of the ancient Egyptians, it may be
Documented as being
similar.
woolly. They're documented and be described as woolly hair, don't they? By
Yes,
the
yes,
ancient
exactly.
Greeks. Yeah.
Yes, and when you look at like some of the mummies, you see that the hair texture is still somewhat thick, and it matches that of the wool on the sheep, and it's not that long, thin, silky straight hair that you see on Asians and Europeans. It's a different kind of hair that you see on the indigenous people of Africa, and you see it on the Aborigine people of Australia as well. It's very
Eurocentric people like to say that African Americans are stealing or claiming a culture that's not theirs. Yet a lot of white people who are obsessed with Egypt, they like to cling on to the Ptolemy dynasty a lot.
I just think that's very ironic, because if someone was trying to steal something, they would do what Europeans did, which is ransack all of the ancient tombs, take all of the sacred artifacts, and put it up in cages and display cases in their museums. If anyone's stealing anything, it's Europeans and whoever and Asians who stole. I mean, I just ironic. It's ironic they want to use the word steal. Like, Africans can't steal African history.
Yeah, but they go on and say, oh, but the Ptolemy dynasty was white. They like to lay claim to that aspect of that part of the history.
And they only emphasize that, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
literally in Hollywood.
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead. Hollywood, ancient Egyptians always depicted as white, almost universally depicted as white, because Cleopatra was a white woman from an inbred white woman from this Greek dynasty that nobody cared about. Cleopatra was more like distant from the building of the pyramids. She was equally as distant to the building of the pyramids as she was to Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Right? The pyramids had already been built for thousands of years. That's old kingdom, right? And when people like Petrie, who was a racist, but was also an Egyptologist, talked about the kings of Giza, they compared them to Nubians. Because Narmer, if you ever see Narmer, if you just look at Narmer, he's undeniably black. Nobody talks about, the founders of Egypt. Nobody talks about,
Right.
you can literally go onto this crash course. I know you guys have heard of crash course. It's this, vanilla white, history channel. But even it acknowledges that the Middle Kingdom, Montu Hotep, the Nubians basically ran the entire Middle Kingdom. Literal Nubians, right, from the area of Aswan, right? History books, Egyptologists sort of kind of miss out on that detail. There's this one video that I just found where like they take a DNA test of one of these mummies, royal mummies, and they're like, oh my god, and then they look at it and they're like, wow, it has these black features, so I guess it must be Nubian, and that's always the conclusion. Always the conclusion. If you see an ancient Egyptian that does not look like it came from the Mediterranean, or it does not look like it's Libyan, it must be Nubian, because we all know the real ancient Egyptians just were black people. It's very strange. It's gaslighting people. It's literally trying to like make you feel like you're insane. But what I found really helpful is, have you guys heard of Punt in relation to ancient Egypt?
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah, Punt. Punt was today it's in either Ethiopia or Somalia or Eritrea. I'm sorry if you're from that country. I cannot pronounce its name. But it's from that region in the world. And the ancient Egyptians never used a form indeterminative for people from Punt or from Punt because they believed that their ancestors came over from Punt and that the Puntites were sort of the same quote unquote ethnicity as them. And you can see in ancient Egyptian folklore like Hatshepsut, this 18th dynasty pharaoh. He said that Hathor came from Punt and that our people came from Punt. I can like link a research paper, but the ancient Egyptians themselves told us what they looked like, and they also literally told us where they came from, or at least where they believed they came from. Ethiopia, Somalia. That's where they thought that their roots were. And so when we see modern day Egyptians talk about this and talk about African Americans claiming something, well, you're claiming something that has nothing to do with you. A lot of the times, their ancestors are the people who ransacked Egypt, right? Who literally would sink places like the dam, sink fortresses of the ancient Egyptians. They would literally like break out the noses, as UniverseTrip was talking about, and destroy these artifacts and rob the tomb, and literally like run over the entire culture that was there. And you sort of see a different sort of population, and you see a different sort of population in Lower Egypt than you see in like Upper Egypt today. For that reason, like the invaders didn't go that far south.
Right. But thank you guys for coming. I have to go now. It's been a really long live. Thank you all. Maybe we can do something more coordinated. My email address is in the chat.
Miss Tripp.
Hit me up on
Oh yes,
Instagram.
yes, yes. It was definitely a pleasure. It was a pleasure building with
Miss
you
Tripp,
guys.
you have a Snapchat?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I have it's at UniverseTrip. Hit me up there to like schedule or organize another semester.
okay. I thought you might have a Snapchat, so I might have to just use your email.
Gmail
Yes.
works. Email works.
Looking forward to it. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Miss Tripp. Hopefully we do this again.
Thank you, Terrell.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
everyone.
yes. I also look forward to doing this again as well. And sister, you have a good night and peace and hotep.
That's right. All right. See ya. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Alma. See ya.
Bye.